Tonight on Reel to Reel, comedian Kathy Buckley. She overcame a bout with spinal meningitis, 2 years in a wheelchair, and cancer to become one of the hottest comedians in the industry. In our new segment, Parish Profiles, we'll visit Old St. Mary's Church in Society Hill. And an enriching pro-life message from the Archbishop of Philadelphia, Anthony J. Bevilacqua, tonight on Reel to Reel. Hello, I'm Monsignor Charles Minor.
And I'm Pat Shelton. Welcome to Reel to Reel. If you've lived in this area for any length of time, you've probably heard of Molly Kelly. She's the executive director of Pennsylvanians for Human Life. She's someone strong in her convictions, strong in her faith, and someone really worth meeting.
And if you've lived in this area for some time, you have heard of Archbishop Anthony J. Bevilacqua, the Archbishop of Philadelphia. We have a special privilege of having a talk with him tonight. Also, we have a wonderful opportunity for you to meet a great girl, Kathy Buckley, who has had all kinds of problems and impairments, but you know, they never held her back once. Because once you enter a world where you can be yourself, your fears are gone. You're alive.
Most of us live in a world of sights and sounds. Many of us take for granted the marvelous sounds that accompany our everyday world. Can you imagine what our world would be like without sounds? Comedian Kathy Buckley knows that world all too well. For most of her life, this funny lady could not hear the laughter because she lived in a world of silence.
You would think with today's technology, they could come out with a hearing aid that's just a little less obvious than this, don't you? I'm going to take this off. I'm going to put the rear one in so I can hear the kind of audience you really are. Quiet one, huh? My whole act is based on truth. God gives you a life in the way that a lot of people are afraid of the truth. But the truth of the matter is God gives you this to show you that life is precious to have fun with and to enjoy. No matter how bad the trauma is, it's only for the moment. No matter how good something is, it's only for the moment. So you have to make the best for each moment.
This comedian's life has been anything but funny. Yet Kathy has a unique way of using her past to inform audiences about handicaps and social issues through laughter.
When I was born RH negative, and then a couple years later, I developed spinal meningitis. Now, the doctors told my family, quote, that she'll probably be a slow learner, and that she would not grow to be any taller than 5'2". And I was in a school for retardation for 2 years before they found out I just had a hearing loss, and they called me slow.
The time Kathy spent in the school for retardation provided her with some special friendships and some funny material.
I was in the school for retardation for a couple of years, and I had found that was the best school. If I could, I'd get everybody in the whole world to come to that school because it was the only place that they didn't pass any judgment. There was a lot of love, and everybody had a disability of some kind, and it was just wonderful. But in that school, my best friend was a little blind girl, and I don't know how we communicated at all. I really don't. I used to sit there and sign in front of her thinking she heard everything I said or saw everything I said. In that school, my best friend was a little Oriental girl, and she was blind. Now, I had no concept of what blindness means for my eyes or my life. But every day we would have lunch together, and she used to have these great barbecue beef sandwiches, and I'd have these boring peanut butter and jelly. So we would trade lunch. Now, what I didn't realize until I got older is that she never saw me exchange those lunches.
So how does a hearing-impaired girl from Ohio go from being a massage therapist to doing stand-up comedy at a club in L.A.? Well, it's as easy as winning a contest.
So finally, they called my name, and there was like this much distance going to the stage, and I was so scared, so scared, so scared. And the minute I passed the hallway into the audience to the stage, it was like an angel, like a spirit just came in and took over me when I got on stage, like I was always supposed to be there. You know, it was wonderful. I mean, I won. I was in front of 250 people. They were laughing. I could see their faces. It was beautiful. It just felt so warm. And all of a sudden, I got off the stage, and the manager comes to me and says, "You brought the house down." I said, "I didn't touch anything." And I spent a good 13 years with some of the top speech therapists in this country just learning how to talk so that people would understand me, and now they all think I'm from New York.
Overcoming incredible obstacles has strengthened Kathy's relationship with God, like the time that she was nearly killed after being run over by a Jeep.
I had a terrible Jeep accident when I was laying on the beach sunbathing. I was in a wheelchair for 2.5 years. I was laid up for about a good 5 years. And then after that, I had cancer for a couple of years. And it always seemed like I was always falling into some kind of a pit, and I was always being picked up. And to me, I couldn't understand what gave me the energy to keep moving, kept picking myself up. And there's that old saying with the footprints, you know, how the good Lord will carry you through those those problem times. I tell you, I must have kept him really busy, because he picked me up on every given chance. I don't care if I slipped on a crack on a curb, he was always there to pick me up. And I realized that he's been my best friend.
Kathy is a source of inspiration to everyone she comes into contact with. And this busy lady always finds time to extend a helping hand to others. At this camp for deaf and hearing impaired children, Kathy leads by example and shares her love of life with the kids and their parents.
Kathy Buckley's been involved with the House Ear Institute now for 2 years, and she's been involved with all our community outreach programs that involve children. And I think the kids are immediately drawn to Kathy because there's so much kid in Kathy that she just warms up to the kids immediately, and they sense that. Kids know, what people they can trust. And Kathy is great as far as giving the parents and the children a role model that they could look up to and say, okay, Kathy's an adult, she's hearing impaired, she has the career of her choice, and she's doing fine. And that's important for the kids and the parents to see that just because a child is hearing impaired doesn't mean that they can't do certain things.
As you might expect, Kathy spends a lot of time helping the hearing impaired. But the project she champions with a passion is one to help the homeless.
The Harmony Project will be putting together a package of services for homeless families that will lift them up out of their situation. And the way we're going to be doing that is to provide daycare for the children and bring in senior citizens to work with the kids so that they have that bond. And while the kids are in daycare, this enables the parents to go out and find work. Kathy was totally responsible for putting Comedy for Harmony together. It's through her connections with the comedy clubs in Los Angeles that we were able to make this event possible. These clubs are normally competitive, but when they heard that Kathy was involved and she approached them, and they said, "Sure, Kathy, whatever you want."
It's a wonder that Kathy can smile at all, let alone make others smile. But she does. She gives all of the credit to her best friend and gag writer, God.
Sometimes I think God is just sitting up there with a big old bowl of popcorn, just sitting there eating it and just looking at me going, I know that's my kid, but I really don't know what she's up to next. And we just laugh together, me and him. We're always laughing together. But I tell you one thing, in the last 3 years, out of all the wonderful sounds that I have heard, there is nothing like the sound of laughter. Thank you for sharing yours, and have a good night. And God bless.
We do tend to hang on to our bad moments, don't we? But Kathy Buckley says a trauma is just for a moment. Don't make a history out of it.
History. I love your cues. And that allows me to tell everyone that this is the first edition of our new feature on Reel to Reel, Parish Profile. And this week's parish is one of Philadelphia's many historic treasures, Old St. Mary's Church.
Philadelphia is famous for its historical landmarks. The city continues its tradition of pride and glory through features which imitate colonial days. On South 4th Street stands a church which has seen Philadelphia through its festive and turbulent times. It is Old St. Mary's Church, the second oldest Catholic parish in Philadelphia. It was founded in 1763 as an extension of St. Joseph's, which became too small to accommodate the increasing Catholic population. Being constructed in an age when Catholicism was rejected by many, every step had to be taken to conceal the church from outside rioters. A facade of houses hid the church, and there is no steeple. In addition to these provisions, the original entrance to the church was through the cemetery. It was not until 1886 that the new entrance was built. The entire interior of the church was reconstructed to accommodate this new passageway. In the 18th century, St. Mary's was often used for special events. One of the most important occasions took place on July 4, 1779, when members of the Continental Congress gathered for the first religious ceremony commemorating the signing of the Declaration of Independence. A Thanksgiving Mass was also celebrated at the church on November 4, 1781, in honor of the triumph over the British. George Washington had visited St. Mary's on at least 2 separate occasions. John Adams, Benedict Arnold, and George Meade are other important historical figures who had visited St. Mary's. 1808 marks an important year for both Philadelphia and St. Mary's, for it was in this year that Philadelphia became a diocese. Right Reverend Michael Egan became the city's first bishop, and St. Mary's became his cathedral. The inside of the church represents different periods of Philadelphia's past. The beautiful chandelier suspended over the middle of the church originally hung in Independence Hall. The chair which stands behind the altar comes from the home of Bishop Conwell, the second bishop of Philadelphia from the years of 1820 to 1842. The incredibly lifelike Pieta, set in place in 1891, stands in the back of the church. It was carved by Alfred Bouguer, who is responsible for famous sculptures in the Louvre in Paris, France. One of the more prominent highlights of the church is the crucifixion window, which takes the place of a crucifix. Although it was crafted in Philadelphia, the glass is originally from Innsbruck, Austria. It has been behind the altar since Holy Week of 1888. Located directly behind the church is the cemetery. When an outbreak of yellow fever occurred in 1805, the cemetery became too small to handle all the deaths. In order to solve this problem, a large amount of dirt was brought in and dumped on the already existing graves. New bodies were then buried in this fresh layer of dirt. Because of this new layer, the cemetery is elevated from the rest of the surrounding ground. Like the parish, the cemetery is also rich with history. Buried here are important members from America's past, including members of Washington's staff and signers of the Constitution. The grave of the famous Bouviers, ancestors of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, can also be found in the cemetery. Commodore John Barry, known as the father of the U.S. Navy, belonged to St. Mary's Parish and is buried behind the church with other members of his family. Today, the parish serves Society Hill residents. Old St. Mary's, a parish where the past is preserved as an important part of Philadelphia's legacy.
I know you always knew it was there. Why don't you go see it? And while you're at it, go to Old St. Joseph's and Holy Trinity too. You're going to enjoy it.
Molly Kelly is a very busy lady. She's the widowed mother of 8. She's the executive director of Pennsylvanians for Human Life, and she travels the country and the world with her message. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And that's what I want to know. I want to know, what is your message? Does this human life have to do with pro-life? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, our organization, Pennsylvanians for Human Life, is an organization dedicated to promoting the sanctity of human life and to really educate people into the horror of abortion. I've been speaking out on the abortion issue for about 15 years now, following my husband's death, who was very active in the movement. And I've kind of gotten off into the chastity issue, which I see as the solution to abortion.
Now that's a word we don't hear too much about these days.
That's right.
Chastity as an alternative to abortion. Tell us about
As a solution to abortion, right. And I'm suggesting that we take that word off the shelf, dust it off, and start using it.
old-fashioned chastity.
It means sexual self-control. It means placing sexual intercourse and marriage where God intended it to be. And I think if we reach our young people with this truth, then instead of going the safe sex route, which they're hearing all the time, perhaps they'll go the saved sex route, which is really the solution.
Now, Molly, when you speak to young audiences with this message of chastity, how do they receive you? Do they poo-poo you or boo you or what?
I am so excited and uplifted. I speak to about 50,000 teens a year, and very, very often I get standing ovations from entire high schools after delivering a 50-minute chastity message telling them to save sex, and if they've already done it, start saving again. In other words, always inviting them back to chastity. The young people receive it well. It's the adults who are afraid to present the message to our young people because they're afraid they won't accept it, but I'm telling you, they do accept it.
What do you ascribe to this acceptance of your message? What does this tell you?
Well, it tells me that our young people are innately good and that they're very ready to be challenged to the moral high ground. In fact, I think this generation of young people are better than my generation as teenagers. I think they're sensitive, caring, concerned, non-judgmental human beings, and they're very willing to get involved in good things. I think we're not tapping the right resource.
I'd like to be there at one of these addresses. I really, it's kind of hard to believe. You hear so much about free love, and as you said, they're promoting safe sex as though, you know, everybody have sex, but do it safely. It's kind of unreal that the teenagers, the young people of today, would accept your message and your challenge.
Well, I think it's difficult because they're desensitized. I think you can barrage them with sexual message to the extent where everything is just a desensitization, almost like the abortion issue. It's a desensitization. This young generation has grown up with legalized abortion. I grew up with abortion being a wrong. This generation is growing up with abortion being a quote-unquote right. So it's more difficult to get the message out, and yet the truth will out. I think our young people, once they hear the message, they see young people hurt, not only by abortion, but by this whole idea of free love, do whatever you want if it feels good to it. And they are very aware that their peer group, their friends, are being hurt if they're not hurt themselves. So they're ready to be called to chastity. Some of them are virgins and need to be affirmed in the fact that that's okay to be a virgin. In fact, it's a gift.
So refreshing to hear this message. Molly, the media portrays pro-life people. Well, I guess they just capture the highlights and the exciting parts when there's a demonstration, picketing. You see people being tossed into paddy wagons and arrested. And how do you answer people who say pro-life people are, you know, sort of strange?
I guess we're strange for God, or whatever the word is, but I think that we must do everything we do in a Christ-like manner. There are people called to the direct action part of the movement, the educational end of the movement, the political end of the movement, and the crisis pregnancy end of the movement. And all of us have a different role to play. My answer would be, if people are upset by what we do, there must be a reason. I think we have to make people feel uncomfortable about killing, because a comfortableness has set in. Oh, well, abortion is just a person's right to choose. Who are you to say it's not their right? You have to always come down to the bottom line. Abortion kills babies and harms women, and that's the bottom line. And when you say that, people get upset. And I think if they get upset, we might just win them over.
Sounds good to me. Molly, if it sounds good to you, maybe you would like people to join your group.
Sure.
You
Pennsylvanians for Human Life is in Ballackinwood, Pennsylvania. They can call 667-1191. We welcome anyone. We welcome them to come not only join us, but to start working for the right to life, because it's an issue that is one of the biggest issues in the world today.
Praise the Lord.
Thank you.
Thank you for your message, and won't you stay with us? We have some more good news for you.
A regional revival of West Philadelphia Roman Catholic churches will take place Tuesday through Friday, October 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. Services begin promptly at 7:30 each evening at St. Carthage Church off Cobbs Creek Parkway at 63rd and Cedar Avenue. Revivalists will be renowned speaker and preacher, the Reverend John T. Judy of Louisville, Kentucky. Music provided by the West Philadelphia Catholic Church's Regional Mass Choir under the direction of Mr. Edwin Newberry. All denominations are welcome. Come, worship, celebrate, revive.
So how old did you say this stuff was? It belonged to my great-grandparents. It's almost 100 years old. Look at this one. Oh, that's the bomb.
That was something real bad, wasn't it?
Sarah, could this thing kill us?
Oh, no. All of the people got together last century and got rid of all of the bombs, and there aren't any left.
Let's give the future back to the children.
Oh, look at this.
We welcome your comments, suggestions, and donations and encourage you to write us at Real to Real, St. Charles Seminary, 1000 East Wynwood Road, Overbrook, PA 19096, or call us during regular business hours at 668-9842.
Every week he's all around the Archdiocese and you meet him. So many of you have met Archbishop Bevilacqua, and he listens to you. Now we'd like you to listen to him with a very serious message about abortion. Now it's important to understand with his other brother bishops, Archbishop Bevilacqua believes the right thing, that faith puts a new light on all life.
As one of many themes for the celebration of Respect Life Sunday, the United States bishops have echoed the prophetic words of the Second Vatican Council. Faith throws a new light on everything. We need faith and the new light which Jesus gives in order to understand the difficult moral problems that plague our modern world. Abortion on demand has resulted from the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision. Experts warn that euthanasia, or what some mistakenly call mercy killing, is dangerously close to becoming legal. These horrors are clearly wrong. God is the author of all human life, from conception to the moment of natural death. The Church, in her preaching and teaching, refuses to ever allow the light of this truth to waver or dim. Because of this, some claim that Catholics just don't care about people. They think we are more worried about obeying rules and that we forget the tragedy and pain experienced by those who have abortions or seek to end their suffering through euthanasia. But nothing could be further from the truth. The Church in her moral life has always taught that we must hate the sin but love the sinner. We can never say that the evils of abortion and euthanasia are right. Doing this would deny the unique and irreplaceable worth of the human being as a child of our loving Father. But as a Church, we have always worked to protect and foster all human life. In the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, our Department of Social Services over the years has established a fine record of providing a myriad of services, including adoption assistance and other alternatives to abortion, as well as child care, personal and family counseling, and many other forms of valuable help, which clearly demonstrate that we are pro-life, all life. Through our Respect Life and Family Life offices, we strive to educate our faithful and all people in the metropolitan area of the infinite value of every human person. By establishing our Office of AIDS Ministry, we attempt to reach out and help those who feel abandoned and alone due to this deadly disease. In our Catholic hospitals, we have pastoral care teams trained to deal effectively with the dying, as well as professional staffs who work to facilitate the total healing of the person in body, mind, and soul. Even in our recent institution of Project Rachel, a program of post-abortion reconciliation and healing, we showed that we do care about mothers who have had abortions. Christ himself cares. He calls all to conversion and peace. As his ambassadors, we can do no less than the Master himself. Because faith throws a new light on everything, I encourage you on this Respect Life Sunday and every day to continue to keep the flame of faith burning brightly in your hearts. Participate in your parish Respect Life programs. Get involved with the many people of goodwill who work in ecumenical and community projects to protect the unborn and build up every aspect of the human family. Be educated on the many pro-life issues by reading your diocesan newspapers and the other fine Catholic literature written in this field. Exercise your constitutional right and duty to vote, not being afraid to keep the Respect Life issue as a priority among the numerous other platforms which are presented by candidates who seek to represent you in public office. Most important of all, never stop praying that we as individuals and as a country professing liberty and justice for all may return to a respect for the worth and beauty of all God's children, especially of the unborn, as he has ordained in the beginning.
The bishops have to address all issues down through the years, and they have always done so, Pat. It seems that the issues in our time are the abortion issues and the pro-life issues, and now it's become such a publicized issue, it's just the political issue. Anybody that takes a stand has to make a stand on it, or the man for the Supreme Court has to say what he's doing about it or not. And then it's not just the issues back in the areas of politics or just big discussion in classrooms. As Molly Kelly says, it touches the individual boy and girl. Every family has to deal with this. And it comes down to the dealing with purity and chastity and keeping the 6th and 9th commandments.
Yes, that was very interesting, Molly's stand on chastity. It seems like that's a subject that somebody just put on a shelf and forgot all about. And now I'm glad to hear that she's bringing this to people's consciousness again. What happened to old-fashioned chastity?
Well, I think many people just put old-fashioned chastity belong to sisters and priests and nuns, and it belongs to us alone. We're all committed to celibacy, each in his own state of life. We're all committed to purity and respect for life and respect for individuals. I think one of the best things I know in talking about chastity is that if I'm going to look at another person, I must not treat that person as a thing, always as a person. It's when one looks at a person as a thing, then we get into real trouble. So the young people really respect this. They understand what it means to be a person because their own personalities are attacked.
Hopefully. There's one thing, Monsignor, now that we have time, I'd like people to think of this pro-life issue as not a Catholic issue. This is a human issue that affects all denominations.
It does really indeed. And one we have to face that very carefully and very seriously, and just not stop talking, but keep talking about it. Well, you keep talking, because we have to go now, and I want to say goodbye, and God bless you.
Goodbye. Good night.
Travel arrangements for Reel to Reel by Atkinson and Mullen, Newtown Square, PA, 215-359-5980.
This Saturday, October 27th, is our Young Adult Rally at Presentation BVM Church. The rally is for anyone 18 to 35, single or married.
Archbishop Bevilacqua is the main celebrant of our 8:15 liturgy.
Everything begins at 6 p.m. with lively song led by our music ministry. The guest speaker at 7 p.m. is Barbara O'Malley, a very special mother of young adults.
The evening ends with a social.
For information and tickets, call 215-668-HOPE anytime this week.
I hope to see you on the 27th.